magandang hapon Europe, magandang gabi Pilipinas, at kung saan man po kayo naroroon, magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ihahatid namin sa inyo ang iba-ibang kwento ng mukha ni Juan sa special program live streaming JUANEUKONEK kontra Corona here on Facebook and on YouTube. Ako po si Rose Eclarinal. Samahan niyo kami sa mga natatanging kwento ng mga Pinoy sa Europa na mag-iiwan ng aral, impormasyon, ngiti at pag-asa.
Ito po ang kwentong Pinoy, kwentong migrante, kwentong Juan, Eukonek, kontra Corona. I'm Gene Alcantara.
For our Contra Corona project, the National Lottery Community Fund is graciously funding this project to serve the Filipino communities in England, UK, and beyond. We have an interesting topic today, mental health and well-being. We will be joined by award-winning London psychiatrist, Dr. Farhana Mann, and entrepreneur Catherine van der Tol, who is based in the Netherlands. She will share her journey as she battles anxiety and depression caused by the challenges in her business during the pandemic. And Jean, what do we have for Immigration 101?
Okay, Rose, makakasama natin ngayon ang batang-batang magkabiyak ng puso na si JP at Princess Walls. Dahil Irish Pinoy si JP, madali niyang nadala sa UK ang kanyang misis na si Princess. At ngayon ay binubuo ng dalawa ang kanilang mga pangarap dito sa kabila ng Brexit. Abangan po natin yan mamaya.
Maraming salamat, Jean. Today, we will tackle mental health during the pandemic. Our guest is Dr. Farhana Mann, an award-winning psychiatrist in London and Wellcome Clinical Research Fellow at University College London or UCL. She's part of the Back on Your Feet program by the Kaizen Academy for Sports Development, an expert on loneliness and mental health. She has 3 kids of her own. Good afternoon, Dr. Mann.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Is it snowing in your place in London?
It is snowing right outside the window, yes.
That's great. So now we start with the business. The lockdown means different rhythm of life for us. While it's a chance to be in touch with others in different ways than usual, for many people, the lockdown also poses a big, huge mental challenge emotionally and mentally. Please give us a general picture of the current mental state, shall we speak of that, or well-being of people and families in the UK during the lockdown?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the biggest priorities needs to be how we handle the sort of mental health fallout of all of the things that are happening here in the UK. One of the ways people are trying to do that is to do sort of studies, some of which are led by UCL, to try to measure the kind of, as you say, the mental state or the mood across the country, across different groups of people. And one of the things that has come up is that for some people, they found ways to make things work. And actually, for some people, they found their anxiety or depression has improved. But for a lot of people, especially young adults, mums at home with kids, or people who've experienced difficulties with their employment, their problems like anxiety or depression, those kinds of things that they might not have had before, seem to be going up. But we won't really know exactly what it all means until things start to settle and we see whether these are long-lasting changes or whether things will improve over time. So all of that data is still being collected, but it seems like we might see an increase in problems like anxiety and depression, and also thinking about staff who might be working in the hospitals or frontline, the trauma, so that sort of worry about people who might experience things like post-traumatic stress, are all things that we have to be actively thinking about.
Wow, that's huge task for you, for people like you in the future. In as much as mental health is important to parents who are juggling between work and household duties, how important is the mental well-being of children, especially now that we are on a lockdown again and it's online learning for children?
I mean, personally, I've been a psychiatrist now for many years. I've been a doctor for 15 years. And one of the things that I've taken away most is that one of the most important things we can do is support families and young children, because what you do for kids early on really does have a positive impact on them later on in life if you kind of put that time in. So I think it's really important that families get support. But if you are a parent in this situation, I'm a parent myself, and we've all got different levels of resources around us and to draw on. One of the things to keep in mind is that this is an abnormal and extraordinary situation. So if you are a parent who's struggling with a lot, first of all, you're not alone, even though we've all experienced different things. This is an unusual time. So your expectations of what you might be able to do or how much you'll get done with your work and the kids need to be realistic. I think people can put a lot of pressure on themselves to function at the same level they were before the pandemic. And that's just impossible, even for the most amazing parent. So allow yourself to change what the priorities are from day to day. And remember that things like exercise, getting adequate sleep, and spending time together as a family are all things that will actively help your kids be healthy, more resilient grown-ups. So sometimes you worry that's a waste of time. We've just got to do the work, get the work done. You know, we haven't got time to go out for a walk. We haven't got time for those things. They're not important, but they really, really are. And as someone who sees adults with mental health problems later on, it's those things. Of course, education's important, but those other things like exercise, sleep, quality time with your family, trying to do what you can to reduce the stress. So just reduce the number of things you try to get done to the most important things can really have a beneficial effect on their mental health. And the biggest thing I think a lot of people find is they've lost the support they might have had. You know, for example, grandparents or other people you might have been able to rely on, you now can't because it's just not safe to do so, or it's just impossible. So what you can try and be creative with that. You know, if you can arrange for other people who might be free to come onto Zoom and maybe teach the kids one thing so it gives you a bit of a break so you can do something else, or make use of screen time that you might not have before if it's something useful that they can learn with. Let the school know what you're juggling with or what the struggles are so that they can support you. But don't feel guilty about that, because you absolutely need to do that for yourself and keep well. And the most important thing if you're a parent is to look after your own health. So your own physical health, all those same things, lowering the standards, making some time, if you can, to just take a break and relax, even just 10-15 minutes a day, plus trying to connect with friends, because some people find themselves more lonely than they might have been before. If you have to do that remotely, obviously, then that still counts. And if it does get too much, remember that it's perfectly fine to talk to someone like a GP if you're feeling that actually the stress is getting too much and you can't manage.
Okay. And what are the signs that we need to watch out for if we have a loved one that needs help?
So thinking about grown-ups, about parents, if you're worried about someone or yourself, the kinds of things to think about if we're thinking about, say, depression or anxiety, which is when a lot of stress constantly playing on your mind. It's normal to worry, so that doesn't mean you have a disorder. But if it gets to the point where the usual things that might help you relax are just not working, you're not able to enjoy the things you would normally enjoy. And when you try to sit down and relax, it's still on your mind and you can't seem to shift it. You can't seem to let go of the thoughts. Other things that may happen is that your sleep is disturbed. You may be waking up a lot earlier than you normally do, or having difficulty getting to sleep at all, despite trying all the usual things. Other things, difficulty concentrating. If you've got a lot of worries on your mind, or you're getting more anxious and worried, concentration can be quite difficult. And also energy levels and your motivation. And so if you find all those things are actually getting too much, you've tried the usual things, you can't seem to get it to work, you've talked to people around you, it's not helping, then that's a good sign. It would be helpful to talk to somebody like a GP, for example, because they're all still working and they can happily, chat with you on the phone, and it's a perfectly valid reason, and they will expect people to reach out in this situation, and they can help you figure out what you might need to do. And it might not be medication, it might be some sort of self-help or therapy, or it might mean medication. But once you talk to them, you can start to figure it out, and things hopefully then will improve.
Dr. Farhana, you are also involved in the Back on Your Feet program by Kaizen Academy for Sports Development. So you're leading the way of the mental well-being side of the project. Tell us more about it.
So yes, I am delighted, very excited to be involved in this project, which is to support families who've been affected by coronavirus, get the chance to get their kids active or get themselves active. I think it's kind of across the age range. And so they can access free karate classes online by fantastic karate trainers and led by amazing Marie, who's a mum herself, and they've done it. They've really adapted, and you can do loads online. And I think we're really learning how much you can connect, and it's offered to families across. I'm pretty sure across the UK. There's a number to text, and you just sign up and you join, and you get both the physical health content, but then I'm around to try and do some sort of basic psychological well-being, mental health support for the kids and for the parents every now and then. And it runs over 12 weeks, and I've joined a few, and it's been fantastic.
Great. And what would be your advice to maintain sanity and happy atmosphere during the lockdown, especially for working parents who are, managing that time to work as well as to supervise the online learning of their children?
First of all, I feel your pain. I've got 3 kids myself. So well done, and well done. It's, I think we talk a lot about key workers and people like that. All of us are doing a massive bit for keeping things going, keeping the country going, keeping our families going. And you're doing a huge task for your family. But don't lose sight of the most important things. And this is scientifically, and I do my research in the field of loneliness and mental health at UCL. The most important things people talk about, throughout their lives, and what we know scientifically keeps you healthy, are meaningful connections, healthy relationships, exercise, sleep, all of those things. Now, I'm not saying that will solve all your problems, but absolutely focusing back to those things. If there's too much to get done from the schoolwork and you've done your best and it's just not going well on this particular day, let the school know. You can always pick it up the next day. Don't expect yourself to do too much. Focus on those core things about mood, about sleep. And remember that for some people, it can be a really special time because you get more time to be with your family. If you have to let go, I did it on Friday. They didn't attend a chess class. We went to the park because it was sunny. It's okay. And I would say, allow yourself that space to breathe and be with your kids. And remember, that's what's most important.
Thank you so much. We will be back after this teaser to answer some of your questions. Diyan lang po kayo. You're still watching JUANEUKONEK at kasama pa rin po natin si Dr. Farhana Mann. At babasahin natin ang ilang tanong, Jean, para sagutin ni Dr. Mann. Do you have some of those questions?
Well, actually, most of the comments are very positive comments, no? Their feedback, about how well detailed the explanations were and how interesting a topic this is for people to learn how to deal with their own health and well-being. So I have a question for Dr. Farhana, if you don't mind. The Filipino community uses social media a lot, express their feelings rather than maybe, I don't know, going to a doctor or a specialist like you when they obviously suffer from coronavirus symptoms or when, sadly, somebody dies. So what do you think is the significance of, Facebook, especially in this case?
So social media is a fascinating topic, as you'll know. I mean, the reality is, in terms of what we know about the research on social media and mental health, we're still learning. Because if you think about it, many of our studies we do over years and we see, how long does it take for these things to impact on people? So they take a bit of time. And social media hasn't been around as long as some of the other things we've studied. What we do know is what seems to be most important so far in determining what happens to your mental health when you're using social media is not necessarily how much time you spend on it or which particular social media you use or that sort of thing, but rather how and why you're using it. So if somebody's on Facebook and they do it because they enjoy keeping in touch with their grandkids, they look forward to sharing posts, they're happy seeing what other people are doing, and they don't feel like it's sort of taken over, and they're not comparing themselves with other people, then they actually seem to be doing pretty fine. They come out of those periods feeling happier. The difficulty is when social media becomes something that sort of determines how you're feeling, in that you go on social media, you compare yourself with other people, or your news feed is full of things that make you feel worse, and then you end up going back and checking it, and actually it's a spiral that makes you feel worse and worse and affects your self-esteem. And especially with a lot of young people, including kids who are on it, who aren't used to sort of getting information from other places where I might have as a child. And also, if it's replacing the time you spend with real people, then that's when it's more of a problem. If you have an active social life with your family and friends, and you use Facebook on the side to keep in touch, that doesn't seem to affect anybody badly. If you are replacing the time, instead of making social connections, or you don't feel confident enough to make real friends, and in that case you spend time on social media constantly comparing yourself, then that can have a much more negative effect on how people are feeling in their mood.
Great,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Yes, and the other bit, because I think you mentioned earlier about obviously dealing with kids, and you have 3 of those.
Yes.
Presumably that includes conflict management and all that. But what about the adults in an adult relationship? What suggestion do you have for people to deal with living 24/7 or sitting 24/7 with somebody?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still working on it. But I think it's a fantastic question, because as I said before, it's a very unusual situation. And you can find yourself, even with the happiest of marriages, kind of constantly in each other's faces. And so first of all, don't be too terrified. It is normal for you to find yourself a little bit more irritable and all of those things. So just allowing yourself the permission to recognize it is quite normal that you will have those moments. And then I think to take stock and recognize, first of all, don't make any massive decisions if you can avoid them, depending on what the level of conflict is, about things like marriages or relationships, because it's such an unusual time. And it may be that things will settle and improve over time. But one useful thing you can do is make sure that you do set aside quality time. It's very difficult to do, but if you actively do it, even once a week, where, for example, if it's a marriage or you're in a relationship, where you don't do the kids stuff, where you try and re-establish a sort of date night type thing. It's a very obvious suggestion, but it allows you to reconnect and focus on the things that you like about each other, and move away from the context and the stress of what's going on, and turn off the news. Not your news, obviously, but turn off the other news, because sometimes having that constant negative cycle of information can be really unhelpful. So take time away from it all, get out into nature. I mean, there are studies that actively show even just 2 hours of spending time out walking in nature a week is enough to improve your mental health. So try and do those things together, but it takes planning, and make the time to do it, because it is worth it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
So much. Thank you so much, Dr. Farhana Mann, for everything that you have shared with us. Maraming salamat po. Magbabalik po ang JUAN You Connect.